going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 275. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E. Sitting here on a Sunday. Happy birthday, my friend. How you feeling?
Hey, thanks, man. Feeling good. Another year survived.
Dude, 28, crazy,
incredible. What an incredible age to be. Really excited about it and what the future has to hold here. But doing well, man. And the grind doesn't stop. Even on the birthday, you're hitting me up. Can we move the pot up earlier? I got shit to do. Come on, you're a bum. Take care of this. Do that. All this other stuff. So, excited to get into this, talk about our favorite team and everything. And man, just grateful to still be here, still around.
To be fair to me, that is pretty much how I talk to you about the podcast every week.
Yeah.
Well, we do have some big Austin FC news to go through. We had a trade literally announced, 12 hours or less after we recorded last week's episode. So that's what it felt like to get moon towered, I guess. So we'll talk about that trade. Of course, free agency opened this week. We had the other offseason mechanisms, re-entry, end-of-year waivers. MLS draft is coming up here this Thursday. So you come to the North End in December, you're going to get some draft prospect talk. Big week for the Academy, of course, as their December tournaments continue. And we are into the final round, of the Goal of the Year bracket. So before we get into all of that here on the Birthday E episode in 2025, just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube channel that you can support the show financially by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. So you go to Apple Pods, Spotify, wherever you're listening to those pods. You can toggle on the auto download button. That'll support the show going forward, and you don't have to think about it again. If you want to go the extra mile, you can rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are on the YouTube channel, hitting the subscribe button there also helps us grow the show. You can then hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, you're on episode 275. Hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. So jumping right into the big news of the week here, E. This was early Monday morning. As I mentioned, Stefan Cleveland traded to Sporting Kansas City. In return, Austin FC gets $50,000 in GAM for the 2026 season. But E, all of our sickos here at the North End know it's not just the GAM that we're getting out of this trade. It's opening up the senior roster slot. And we're leaving our salary cap of right around $275K, I think was Cleveland's cap hit last season. So again, this is something we've been expecting, but I just didn't necessarily think it was going to come like this, right? We kind of all assumed that Stefan Cleveland's option would be declined 2 weeks back, and so the immediate reaction was, that's weird. Maybe there's something coming, and here it is.
Yeah, there must have been some type of market for him for sure. Otherwise, I don't know why you're picking up that option. And as you can see here, Roto and the staff get this deal done. And this is great, man. We wanted to open up another senior roster spot. We wanted to clear the path for Damian Loss to go ahead and be the number 2 here in Austin if we aren't going to loan him out or potentially sell him as well. Haven't heard anything about that, any sort of small brush fires about potential rumors of Damian moving on. So it does look like, he's going to be the number 2 here. And opening up that $275K off the books, another fantastic thing. And Cleveland should have a chance here in Sporting Kansas City to go ahead and compete for the first team for the first position on the depth chart at goalkeeper. Because John Polskamp, we've clowned him almost every season we've been involved in, with doing the pod here. So there's a real opportunity for him. So I'm happy for Steph Cleveland, man. Maybe he can go ahead and win that job, and that's great. And also very happy to get him off the senior roster spot because, you've been beating that drum about one keeper on the senior roster spot. I'm very much on board with that as well. So wish Cleveland the best for sure. And happy that we have that senior roster spot big time.
Yeah, if I'm being greedy, right? I mean, you talked about John Pulskamp and how much we picked on him, like with the underdog picks this year and all that. Like now we probably don't have that cash cow in the 2026 season because I would expect Stefan Cleveland to kind of grab this job and run with it. Not too dissimilar from Brad Stuver, right? Like spent many years with multiple teams as a quality backup. And now certainly going to get a shot here, as you mentioned. But turning back around to the Austin side of it, like you mentioned, Damian Lass, right? Now is 100% the backup keeper and should get some action this coming season, right? Because we talked about on last episode about Austin FC being back in US Open Cup, and we expect to be in Leagues Cup this year as well. And we know that Stefan Cleveland has at least got a shot in each of those two tournaments over the last 2 seasons. Each shot lasted 1 game apiece, won both of the games, but it was time to get Bradley Scott Stuver back in there. So we will get to see, barring injury or any unforeseen circumstances, we will get to see Damian Lass in net for the first team next season. And that's very exciting. Whether or not he becomes the heir to the Stuver throne or not, right? We've all been waiting to see what Damian can do at the first team level.
Yeah, this has a lot of people excited. A lot of people are big fans of Damian Lass. You saw him come up with the next pro team, win, with that championship with that club, have a ton of success at Louisville, won keeper of the year this past season, right? And,
the Golden Glove, I think they call it.
As you mentioned, I don't know what episode it was, but he has, been at this level, accomplished it, been at this level, accomplished it. And now here's his next step. And I mean, the dude just looks like he eats, breathes, lives soccer. You know what I mean?
Clearly.
And like, I'm super excited to have him here. And like you said, with those external competitions taking place, you should get a look at him. And like, I'm really excited to see that because I want to see him at this level and what he's going to look like, so this is big. I'm a huge Damian Lass fan, as a lot of people are, and him getting his opportunity as well is great.
When you see the updated roster sheets here at the northendpodcast.com, we are now sitting on 3 open senior roster slots. And again, that is with us assuming that Ilie Sanchez is staying on the senior roster and not following that trajectory of Diego Rubio's offseason last winter onto the supplemental roster. That is with 2 contract buyouts in the holster here, right? So there could be much more roster turnover, especially in those senior slots, than the flexibility would indicate right now. And obviously that's going to come down to Roto and his team. And like, obviously over the last year with how inept the offense was this past season with the price tag that new front line came with, like there are certainly legitimate questions and reason to be skeptical of potential TAM level guys, another U22 or whomever we think Roto can or should bring in here. But I will point out, the last thing I want to say on this Cleveland move is like the side dishes, the appetizers have never been Roto's problem in the kitchen. And this is another one. You sign Stefan Cleveland for free. You get $50K GAM back for him. Like that is, no matter what you want to say, man.
Yeah.
Like that is a good little side dish there. And that I'm going to sit here and point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking to myself, about like how great I was feeling about the Cleveland move and the potential of Damian moving forward and seeing him in time and everything like that. And you brought up the offense from last season, man. And looking on that chart, and you got Jader Obrian on an international slot, dude.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? And we're big Roto guys. We trust in that process. We trust in his ability. And like, I know that there's some people who are getting frustrated, some fan base, some parts of the fan base that are a bit frustrated with him and everything. And to me, this is a glaring issue with Jader on that international slot, how much he's hitting the books at, and the fact that we're just not getting anything out of him. The Robert Taylor experiment did not work as well. And we know that we got to get some guys in here who can not only distribute the ball better, but also score at a higher clip. And like this senior roster needs an infusion of actual talent. And as you mentioned, of course, this is, a bit of an appetizer. We're hoping to get a bigger dish, and we're going to break down, where the team was in the past offseason and how fast that kind of moved for us. But this team needs some better players on it if they're going to be, taken seriously. And I think if you roll this back out kind of as is, it's I think we hit our ceiling last year, really.
Sure.
Like 6th place in the West. I really think that that's about as high as we could have gone with.
So let me just counter that real quick. And it's not a strong counter, but Austin did tank 3 of their last 7 regular season games. I'm not saying you get 9 points from those games, but at Dallas, at RSL, at San Jose, you rolled out less than 100% of your starting lineup that was healthy, and or rotated guys at the half against San Jose on decision day. We had nothing to play for, things like that. So again, like I think there's a little bit percolating around the upcoming off season, or the ongoing off season rather, that there's only that the ceiling, kind of like you mentioned, for next year's team, given the flexibility that we have right now, that the ceiling doesn't go up that much. I think it's hard to disagree, but I also think if you go back and look, like since we've been in the league, you think about the top 4, the teams that make the top 4 in the West. I think there's only 3 teams that have done it multiple times over the last 5 seasons since we've been in the league. LAFC 4 times. Like you can count them in probably. Seattle 3 times. That is a good bet, even going back before we were in the league, of course. And the Galaxy twice. They get Ricky back next year, right? That's going to be a strong sleeper pick for a lot of people, I think. But then it's like 11 other teams, including Austin FC, that have also got into that top 4. So there's always going to be at least one team that surprises and pops and gets that home playoff game, or hosts the best of 3 first round, whatever the format is going forward. So I just want it right. Like, you are in a position where you don't have to take that big of a step to continue having your hat in and around that ring of top 4.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And you mentioned, obviously the mainstays in the Western Conference who we have seen be at the top of the table, year in and year out. And I expect those teams to be up there again next year. Like you said, not a big step to move up into that conversation, but I do think there's a big gap talent-wise between us and those teams. And, we've talked about the TAM that we have available to us, man, and I hope it's utilized.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it will be. We're not sitting on our hands here. Yeah. And I guess another thing that I was another point I was making in a group chat this week was, again, I know we have not won a real trophy yet. You got very close with the Open Cup this last year, but even if we hit like what you think is our ceiling outcome this offseason, like, we're not going to be favorites for MLS Cup, right? God, no. So, I don't know. Let's keep moving here, E, because we're going to come back around to some of this. Okay. Quick note, St. Louis game May 3rd was moved up from 6 p.m. to 4:30. So again, that's 5+ months away, something like that. But interesting scheduling note there. I believe that will put our kickoff right near the end of the F1 race that weekend. And with the way Apple TV now, right, MLS season pass, or it's not a season pass anymore. You just get the MLS games if you have Apple TV. I believe it's the same thing with F1. So maybe trying to push some F1 fans into watching that Sunday night soccer match doesn't seem like a bad idea to me. But hey, 4:30 game on a Sunday in May, probably going to be pretty nice out there.
Yeah, that does sound pretty nice. And F1, man, that's been blowing up like crazy. Everyone's talking about that shit now. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm sure if I paid some attention, I would get sucked in, but I have avoided that to this point.
You'd do a whole other podcast.
So as we get to, sidebars galore here today. We're sitting out there last night at the bar, hanging out with some friends celebrating your birthday. And I'm hunched over at Spurs Thunder NBA Cup semifinals. for fucking 2 hours. And our buddy P Mike comes up and he's like, man, you're like really into this. I'm like, yeah, dude, this is my actual favorite.
Yeah.
Like, so imagine me from Austin FC, but like even more crazy. Anyways, let's talk about some of the free agent moves that happened this week real quick. We can hit on some of the high notes across the league, because getting back into what I was saying about Roto, I feel like every window that he's had since he's been here, absent the first one where you sell Diego Fagundes and you throw us completely into the rebuild, the roster has gotten better. The results have gotten better, whether it's eye test, on paper, in a tournament bracket, what have you. The 4 consecutive windows, and I think we're going to do that again here. But off to a slow start if you're looking at a Tom Bogert Twitter feed or what have you and seeing all the deals roll in, right? There's 30 teams out there able to make free agent moves here. And so not a free agent move, but Inter Miami, as expected, exercised Rodrigo de Paul's purchase option. I think it was $17 million, right around in there. So he'll be a DP as planned. Seattle Sounders re-signed Stefan Fry. And now I do want to stop here for a second. Stefan Fry is 38, right? Longtime club legend goalkeeper for the Sounders. This is going to be his 13th year for the club. I think this is a decent example of a ceiling outcome for the latter half of Brad Stuver's career here in Austin. Stefan Fry, I don't think their fans are like, they're not throwing a huge party, I think. Like maybe just kind of expected him to be back in there. But clearly, they're fine with Stefan Fry at age 38 here. And Brad Stuver's got a long way to go. It's another administration, I think, until we get to that level age-wise. So that's just when you hear people saying, well, Damian Loss might not end up being the guy in Austin, because it could be 4, 5, 6 years for Brad Stuver to drop a level. And that would be awesome, right? Yeah. But I think this is just kind of an example that we should be looking to when we think about the goalkeepers, the 2 that we still have left on the depth chart, because the guy we just traded was Stefan Fry's backup. And now Andrew Thomas, who was very good, he doesn't get the job. Stefan Fry, age 38, re-signed.
Yeah, I was going to say this. The parallels are pretty not impressive here, but similar with our situation, like Stefan Fry, and then you have this young up-and-coming keeper, Andrew Thomas, who, they really designated him as like their PK guy. And I thought that was pretty awesome. And when we were talking about the situation with having Cleveland, this was still when he was on the roster. I was trying to think of your teams that did have 2 keepers on the senior spot. And I don't know if Andrew Thomas is occupying a senior spot. I don't know if he's supplemental or not. But like that was the first team I was like, who I bet has 2 keepers is fucking Seattle. And like looking at Andrew Thomas in the playoffs and everything like that. Oh, they got Stefan Fry at 39 here, so even older. But I mean, and I've had that thought as well. I'd imagine some other fans have as well. Looking at Stuver and how he's gotten better, I think he's improved every single season we've had him here. And to see where he's at now, I don't know if there's like if you can put it like, maybe 2 more good years. It could be 4, 5, it could be. That's a situation. And then like, you also have to see what Damian's got and how he's going to perform. But that little 1-2 punch that they have up there in Seattle with those 2 keepers, I think is pretty cool, man, because Andrew Thomas is a beast saving PKs. And obviously Stefan Fry has been a great keeper in this league for a very long time.
Yeah, and won a lot of competitions across the spectrum of competitions you can compete for here in North America. Andrew Thomas is indeed on a senior slot for Seattle. Not us anymore, though, baby. We keep it moving here. DC United, right? Christian Benteke, one of the big name free agents. We didn't touch on him last week because we aren't getting Christian Benteke. But DC United is nearing a deal to trade for Philadelphia Union striker Ty Baribo, reportedly a $4 million cash trade, which would make Baribo a DP. And like, look, man, that's all well and good, but you're going to need to see a lot more Bogert tweets saying DC United signs X, Y, or Z for me to be worried about that at all. DC United, of course, coming to Austin. That's our second game this coming season.
Yeah, and I'm more so focused on the Philly aspect of this. You know what I mean?
They're cheap as hell, man. That's
it's crazy,
right?
It's really nuts that they're just like, let these guys go, and they keep churning out teams. Obviously, the Shield winners last year and everything like that. They won the Shield.
They did. And
Okay.
dude, so when I was going through looking at the top fours from the West, I went ahead and looked at the East as well over the 5 years that we've been in this league as Austin FC fans. Philly, the other team that's been in the top four times in the last 5 years. And
Yep.
with like you mentioned, right, so many different iterations of this roster.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an impressive, organization that they have over there. But like you said, with DC United, man, we talked about the schedule release and everything and how we thought this year, actually, we had a little bit of a more difficult draw from the Eastern Conference, but I will always welcome a game versus DC United.
Brandon Bai goes from New England, goes out west to the Portland Timbers. So, right, Brandon Bai is a right back. I want to say a year and a half ago did his ACL. So, I think kind of came back into the team with New England last year. And obviously, they didn't have a great season. I was head scratching this move a little bit from a Portland perspective because from everything I can see, Juan Mascara is still there. We know he is a above average right back in this league. I was talking to our buddy Logan Okwah. He thinks that Brandon Bai will slot in at the left center back there in their 3-back, which makes some sense to me. But right, another addition here to the Western Conference. And then you stay on that West Coast, San Diego trades their Superdraft pick from this year and some undisclosed compensation for forward Lewis Morgan from New York Red Bulls. And right, Morgan, of course, spent the last year, really 2 of the last 3 seasons on the bench dealing with injury, but I want to say like maybe 20 goal contributions in 2024. And we know, right, the Scottish forward, we know what he can do from our short time being fans of this league. Bogert also followed up his initial report on the trade saying that Red Bulls will hold some of Morgan's cap hit next season. And there's this we saw the international slot loans between Vancouver and New England last year that we benefited from, right, financially with the GAM. Now Bogart's saying that San Diego is sending $400K GAM this year. They have plenty in the coffers. Red Bulls really need it, and will send back around $400K in 2027. So now we're GAM loan sharking out here. I love this league and I hate this league.
Yeah, no, for real, man. If he can stay healthy, man, that's a good get. And adds to that arsenal. And
not good for us, that is.
Exactly.
Did not like to see that.
No, did not like to see this one at all. I know you're still pretty adamant about them being a bit of a fraud.
Hey, look, didn't win the title.
But this is a good get for them, man, and just adds to a really, really talented offensive team that they have over there.
Yeah, and look, man, the West Coast is beefing up here, man, because the Galaxy trade $1 million in GAM plus some potential add-ons to the Philadelphia Union, who ship Jakob Glesnes to the West Coast. Like, you put him in, like, Maya Yoshida, right, had a great career as a Premier League center back at one point, in his prime. But we know how, I won't say washed, but he was a little over the hill athletically over the last season and a half, maybe a little longer. So now getting Jakob Glesnes, former Defender of the Year, to pair with the very young, spry, and athletic Amiro Garces, like, that is such an upgrade in a huge position of need for the Galaxy. And we know they just get to add Ricky Pooch back to this roster this coming season. So again, it's not great news with some of these acquisitions, but did want to touch on, again, some of the more important, the bigger names that already found new homes here in the first 4 days or so of free agency.
Yeah, definitely don't love that one. One of the best defenders in the league, man. And with that Galaxy team, getting Ricky back, they're going to be able to score with Paintsel and Peck up there. Ricky distributing the ball. Diego obviously distributing the ball up there. But that defense last year was absolutely atrocious. I mean, I can't remember the one dude's name, but he was genuinely the worst player in the league. Like, every time.
Zonka, right?
Holy Christ. Yeah. This dude was the worst player I had ever watched at this level, man, outside of Amro Tarek.
But we didn't even watch him in MLS. We just watched him in the Dominican.
Just watched him screw us up. Whatever. Okay, but this is a big get, man. This is a really big get. And like you said, this Galaxy team will be in the conversation this upcoming season.
Well, didn't mean to make this a footnote, but it was later in the day on Saturday when the news came across that Walker Zimmerman has decided to go north of the border and sign with Toronto FC. So luckily Zim not going to like Vancouver or something, coming to the West as well. Apparently will not be a DP deal, which is unsurprising, I think, to us. But yeah, Zim goes to Toronto. I saw our buddy Mike Crignola say, is he on the Hedges path? And like, is he going to come back to FC Dallas in the middle of next year or something like that? But we also go to Toronto next year. So new look. I want to say Maple Leafs up there, but that's it's a different sport. But now Zimmerman there, Georgi Mihailovic there. It's a different look for Toronto.
Yeah, for sure. I think I was a bit surprised by this move for Zim. Once we found out he was a free agent and was going to be available and everything like that, I thought for sure he was going to want to go to a solidified contender that, already had their chips in place and everything, was really ready to go make a push and like a run. And this Toronto team, you did mention Mihailovic, and they got rid of some bad contracts up there, but they're not,
and maybe some bad personalities too.
For sure, some bad locker room guys for sure, but they're just not the caliber of team that you're going to have to be in the Eastern Conference to really make some noise, in my opinion, unless they have more stuff coming down the pipeline and everything.
Well, so again, it's natural, I think, to when your team doesn't make any moves and there's no updates to a John Bell rumor and no new rumors surfacing from anywhere, and you see all these names thrown around, and then especially the guys that we saw coming to the Western Conference, it's natural to start, getting a little bit antsy, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel it. I feel you, right? I want this stuff to get rolling too. But I listed out kind of the major events, at least how we categorized them last offseason. And these offseasons are not one-to-one, right? We knew we were going to fill a DP slot last offseason. Then all of a sudden, we were filling a second one and selling the best player we've ever had, at least in terms of our field players, and everything that happened in between. So just to illustrate where we're at in that timeline relative to last year, right? Because we know we have all the TAM. You're going to bring in at least one TAM guy. You have a U22 slot. You have your buyouts. So there is plenty of flexibility here, depending on the players you can bring in and get those deals over the line. But last season, right? So we're recording this December 14th. Zardes got bought out on December 9th of last year. Tom Bogert reports negotiations between Fafa Pico and Austin FC on December 12th. So we're here right after the first Fafa report. Now stick with me. It's going to take a minute or two. December 16th, Nico hires his assistant coaches. That's when we learned Davey was going to stay on, and we saw the rest of the coaches' names for the first time. December 20th, Bruno Damiani rumor comes through, right? Who ended up being a DP for the Philadelphia Union in their Supporters Shield race last year. On New Year's Eve, we had both the Ilie rumor surface in the morning, and by the evening, Ilie was announced as an Austin FC player. So that was all in December. On New Year's Day, the first Brandon Vasquez to Austin rumor comes from CL Merlot on his social accounts. The next day, on the 2nd, Besard Sabovic rumor comes from Tom Bogert. On that same day, Bogert reports that Austin is nearing a deal to acquire Brandon Vasquez. On January 4th, River Plate reportedly offers $9 million for Driussi. So I have skipped over the first couple, the little bit of smoke coming out from South America saying River Plate's making a push. At the time, if you'll recall, we were saying, oh, okay. Thanks for the offer, buddy.
Yeah.
See you later. But then that $9 million for Driussi that was reported on the 4th, that got our attention, right? And on that same day, Austin FC purchased Brandon Vasquez from Monterrey. The next day, on January 5th, Bogert reports that Sebastian Driussi is close to being sold to River Plate. On January 8th, we got our first Mirtu Azuni rumor. January 10th, Austin reportedly near a deal to sign Nico Dubersarski from Estudiantes. 2 days later, Dubersarski came from Instituto. Estudiantes, 2 days later, reportedly met Austin's $10 million price for Driussi, throwing a wrench into River Plate's lowball offers. The next day, Austin signed Dubersarski per South American sources. January 14th, the day after that, Austin rejected an $8 million bid from River Plate for Driussi. And later in the day, Bogert reports that River Plate, this was a South American rumor or report, said that River Plate re-upped their offer to $10 million. The next day, on the 15th, River Plate optimistic about their $10 million agreement for Driussi. Austin working on a new DP attacker per both CL Merlot, and Tom Bogert.
Mm.
Later that evening, Austin and River Plate reach agreement in principle to sell Driussi. The next day, January 16th, Austin reportedly ready to pay Mirtu Azuni's $12 million release clause. And later in the day, Austin signs Nico Duber-Sarski. The day after that, Austin officially sells Driussi for $10 million and the 8.5% sell-on fee per Tom Bogert. The day after that, January 18th, Austin signed Besard Savage per Tom Bogert. 3 days later, Austin signs Mirtu Azuni per Tom Bogert, and John Kolmanich signs a contract extension. January 31st, Damian Loss goes on loan again to Louisville. Guilherme Biru signs an extension, both on the same day. February 2nd, Austin sells Gavin Wolf's academy rights to Houston per Tom Bogert. February 10th, Mikael Dessler obtains a green card, and February 21st, the day before the season started, Damian Loss signed a contract extension. So, very long-winded, lots of shit happening. We should not expect that type of crazy this offseason, but it could, right? Is it a 0% chance that Mirtu Azuni moves on? I don't think so. Again, maybe 5% or less, but like crazy shit could and probably will happen, not to the selling our best player degree, but like there's so much that can and will happen. And we just, unfortunately, again, I'm there with you, everybody. We want to see the moves happen. They will come, and we just have to be a little patient.
Yeah, would I have loved to have been in, these recent news blasts that went out about players coming to us, and, Jakob Lesnes and, being on Baribo and things like that. Of course I would be, but need some patience here. And as you mentioned, going through that timeline there, what a ride it was last year. Good Lord, man. Holy shit. And, again, to your point here, the only way that you're going to rival something like that is if Mirtu's on the move, and we're talking, tens of millions of dollars potentially, being thrown around here for his services. And then what's the next step after that? Because you can't roll into this season with just 2 DPs, obviously speculating here, but the news will come. We'll be ready for it. We're on live stream, alert watch, coming up here for sure. So keep those notifications ready in case we go live on a launch or something like that. But excited to see what Roto's going to do here. As you mentioned, we have the flexibility. You have the mechanisms. We want to see that U22 spot filled. We want to see some TAM players in here. I can't be the only one who's really clamoring for some buyouts of some certain players. Cough, cough. So we'll get there, a little patience.
Dude, if Roto was able to move Mirtu Azuni for anywhere close to $10 million right now, like, not only should you take that deal, but we might have to officially start like the fucking Church of Roto or something. Like, that would be incredible. Continuing through the off-season mechanisms here, reentry stage 1 happened on Wednesday. No players were taken, and that goes for Austin FC and the entire league, right? Which I'm not sure if that we've had no players go in stage 1 since we've been fans of this league, but it's usually not more than 2 or 3 guys. So stage 2 will still happen next week on Wednesday, or this week rather, on Wednesday. And then end of year waivers, there was only 1 player picked up, and that was Seattle getting a backup goalkeeper. They claimed Max Anker, who came up, I believe, through the Whitecap system, has certainly been with Vancouver the last couple of years. Got a couple starts, I think, when Takaoka was either out on international duty or maybe injured. Maybe got a cup start here or there, but Max Anker now in Seattle. So that is their third string keeper behind the re-signed Stefan Fry and, of course, Andrew Thomas. And that leaves right? You could grab somebody in stage 2 of the reentry draft. Probably not, which leaves Thursday's MLS Superdraft as a time where we will get players, unless we trade out of all 3 of our picks, which we've seen Roto move the first round picks in each of his 2 drafts, but he has drafted those later round players and, stashed those guys on Austin FC too. Or I guess Jimmy was a second round pick, was on a first team contract.
Yep.
So like, keep in mind about Roto trading out, like we should probably expect him to try to move this pick. And we have the 17th pick here on Thursday. But this is also the latest he's picked, or the latest our pick has been in the Roto tenure. So I think it's certainly tougher to sell the 17th pick for any sort of significant gam compared to selling the 5th pick or whatever for $200K that we did for Nate Jones, who was declined by Colorado, by the way. So if you want to go grab Nate Jones, stick him on Austin FC too, you can do that. But like we also got an international slot, I believe, for last year's pick. So I don't think you're getting one of those for the 17th pick. So maybe we do get a first round player here and hold on to him, sign him, whether it's second team, first team, supplemental, what have you. I did want to touch on, like this honorary Stephen and Nor Giamfi awards here, who did get cut by Houston. We could grab him as well. There are 2 players at the top of this class that seem to be the shiny toys, right? Probably going to get those GA tags. Or I think they maybe have changed GA to where it's only freshmen. One of these kids is a freshman, but I want to start with Ransford Gian or Guyan from Clemson. And like, I believe both of these kids would require international slots. But I do, just as we talk through these potential prospects here, reminder that Jimmy Fark-Harlan had a green card, right? And is Liberian and came over here, I think, either right before college or for his college career. So like, it's not crazy to think that any of these potential international guys may have a green card. And of course that would raise their value even higher in, on the MLS team's draft boards. So this Clemson kid, Gian, was ranked 3rd in the midseason Top Drawer Soccer ranks nationally, 5'3", 141 in the midfield there, midfielder / forward, because he's got 13 goals and 14 assists in his 39 collegiate games. That's across 2 seasons there with the Tigers. This guy was the Gatorade High School Player of the Year in 23 and 24. He's the first person in the history of the Gatorade Player of the Year award to win multiple awards.
Wow.
He had 20 goals and 14 assists in his junior year of high school in a 17-game season, which was 17-0-0 that year for his high school, I think, in New Jersey. So again, these guys are out of our reach, but you should expect Gian, and then the other one, Junior Diouf from Grand Canyon out there in Arizona. Senegalese national, probably requires that international slot, but this is the freshman I was hinting at, the number 1 freshman in the Top Drawer Soccer ranks. He was a semifinalist for the Mac Herman Trophy this year. That's kind of the Heisman there for college soccer. He was the WAC Offensive Player of the Year, WAC Freshman of the Year, all freshman team in the WAC, all WAC first team here. In his 21 games, 18 goals, 6 assists. And our rivals to the north, FC Dallas, traded a significant amount of GAM to CF Montreal to jump up to 3. I think they might be trying to grab one of these guys, and I don't like it. But that's something to watch. And those 2 names, Ransford Gian from Clemson and Junior Diouf from Grand Canyon. Those are my 2 honorary Stephen and Nor Giamfi award winners here for the 2026 draft.
A prestigious award, it is, and definitely got to be taking a look at the Stephen and Nor Giamfi availability in my book. But yeah. I just pulled up the 2024, draft tracker here, and you can get some guys in that range that we fall in. Yannick Bright
wasn't Tate Johnson like 17th last year or something like that? He was right around there, I feel like.
I don't know.
Sorry, I derailed you there. You're talking about Yannick Bright.
He 1,400 minutes for Miami last year. Jamar Ricketts, who we got to see plenty of times, who I think is a promising talent. He went 13th. You even go to the second round. Bo LaRue was picked up in the 13th pick of the second round here by San Jose. So like, again, a lot of these guys aren't immediate impact players. It just, that's not how this works in this league, but there are some dudes you can find that can come in and contribute. So I'm interested to see what we're going to do here. As you mentioned, Roto has not been shy or hesitant to move out of the first round and get some money or get some international slots, what have you. But if you're doing your due diligence and you're looking for some quality players, they do exist in this draft. It's not a very high hit rate, but you can find some.
Well, and so you're looking at the 2024, they actually move it ahead, even though the draft this week is in December 25. It's officially the 2026 Super Draft. So if you look at even last year, this is what I was remembering about Tate Johnson. He was 15th last year, so didn't fall to that magic number 17, but Jansen Miller at number 8, right? Played plenty of minutes for Sporting Kansas City. It wasn't a great season for them, but again, if you get a guy who's contributing significant hundreds, maybe 1,000+ minutes out of the super draft, that is a huge boost to your roster in this league. Even if it's right, it's just a minutes eater or something like that. I mean, Ian Pilcher, though, played some significant minutes for San Diego, the number 1 team in the West. Like, he started at center back for them against us at Q2 back in March or April, whenever that game was, right? I mean, you got a guy like Riley Thomas at 42 last year, who, again, like Riley Thomas, not a world beater to this point of his young career, but like you can find names. Emeka Eneli stands out to me from years past, and we could keep going. But what I want to do real quick, is touch on a couple prospects that we might see. Again, this is the opposite of shooting fish in a barrel here, trying to look at the player pool for the upcoming draft and see like who's going to be there, what position is Austin targeting. There's just not a lot of content, not a lot of information out there about this, and for good reason, right? You don't get a ton of impact players from the super draft, but they are out there. So I do want to shout out friend of the pod, Mark Kelkenberg, who's one of the better outlets or individuals who's putting out content surrounding the draft, deep in the collegiate soccer streets here, and does a lot of work to promote some of these kids, even outside of draft season. So I was looking at Mr. Kelkenberg's mock draft, where they drafted all 3 rounds. So this was like a 2.5-hour stream, And so this kid that we have on the screen for the YouTube viewers right now, Zach Lillington from UC Davis, was who Kelkenberg and his compatriots there mocked to us at 17. Lillington was not ranked in the mid-season top 100 for Top Drawer Soccer's ranks, but he was invited to the Combine, or the, what do they call it? The MLS College Showcase, right? Same thing as the Combine, but closed to the public. Only 45 players got invited to that this season. So Lillington, a 6'4", 191-pound senior from UC Davis, listed as a defender on the roster this season, but his freshman year was midfielder/defender. Then his sophomore and junior seasons, he was listed as a midfielder. No matter what, this is an offensive-minded player here. He led UC Davis in shots this year with 50, 3 goals, 3 assists in his 18 appearances, 8 goals, 9 assists in his 68 career collegiate games. And like, dude, this kid's profile reminds me of like, maybe it's not the best comparison for multiple reasons, because maybe these guys don't really play the same position, and we don't want a repeat of what happened to Kip Keller. But the one thing I remember about Kip Keller in the draft process was that people were so high on him because he did play some midfielder in high school and a little bit at SLU in his early years there with St. Louis. But like, clearly Lillington is less hyped in the collegiate soccer ranks than Kip Keller was. But this is a big midfielder/defender, and like 6'4", 190, that smells like a defender to me at the MLS level. So maybe plays well with the ball at his feet here, and maybe that's why you could see a guy at 6'4", midfielder defender maybe end up in Austin. So Zach Lillington, courtesy of the Kelkenberg mock draft, that's our first name here.
That's cool, man. I can't believe they did all 3 rounds. That is absolutely wild.
I know, insane.
You gotta be a real sicko to do that. Holy shit,
man.
Yeah, again, like, as I did just kind of hype up the super draft and like potentially finding players and things like that, nobody should be expecting us to go find some sort of offensive, maestro in this draft at the 17th spot. And you're like, how do you approach this? Maybe it's best available. You know what I mean? Not necessarily a positional need or anything. Maybe just go best available, get someone into your system, and then try to develop them and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to see that they took the time to really go in depth with this. And 50 shots for a defender/midfielder, pretty impressive. He was getting them off. Shit.
Yeah, and I don't care who, what team you're on. If you're leading the team in shots from the midfield or potentially playing some on the back line, that does stand out to me. So I've got 4 other names here that I just want to highlight quickly. First is Luka Nikolai, 6'1", 181, just played his junior year at UNC with the Tar Heels, mostly a defender, primarily a right back. So this was the Riley Thomas replacement for the Tar Heels. Nikolai is from Germany. He spent 10 years in the Borussia Mönchengladbach system, spent his first 2 collegiate years at JMU, shout out AG, top drawer first team freshman All-American. He was all Sunbelt first team at JMU, Sunbelt Defensive Player of the Year in his sophomore season, first team all Sunbelt for the second time. This is another one of those kids. I'm unsure if he would take an international slot. I assume so, considering the German nationality. But again, Jimmy had one, so we never know as fans here until we potentially sign these guys to a first team deal, if they have one or not. And I think that if you select a kid where there's a question, you could probably feel pretty good that the kid does have a green card, because I don't think we're using an international slot on anybody from this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't have too much to add to that.
Next one is Marius Stenner here. This is a blue hen from Delaware. Stenner, 6 foot, 169, just played his sophomore season there at Delaware. 11 goals, 9 assists in his 17 games, on top of the 9 goals, 5 assists in his 16 games freshman year in 2024. And in 24, he was the CAA Freshman of the Year, All CAA First Team, All CAA Freshman Team. And this, I think I got this correct. Marius Stenner was the Danish third division's top scorer in 2022. So again, Denmark, unsure about the international slot, but originally a left back, converted to forward in college, and obviously killing at the collegiate level there with Delaware. So Marius Stenner would be a name. If that pops up number 17 on Thursday, I'm going, okay, I'm going to pat myself on the back.
There we go. All right, Marius Stenner.
Noah James is named number 3 here, 6'4", 185. Is a midfielder for the University of San Diego. He spent his first 2 collegiate seasons at Western Michigan. He was all WCC second team this year, started all 19 matches for San Diego, second most minutes on the team. He helped San Diego win their 4th consecutive WCC championship. Noah James is a domestic player. And I think he's probably a guy you just need to watch play, because I saw he was the 7th highest ranked freshman on Top Drawer's 2023 rankings. He was a Top Drawer freshman best 11 that season with just 1 goal and 3 assists for Western Michigan. So I think this is a guy you need to watch play and see how good he is, rather than just looking at the stats like we do for a lot of these players.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I will be interested to see where these guys go or end up.
Yeah.
You know,
well, and like, if you think about, right, obviously Roto hasn't made a first round pick that we've kept yet. But you just moved Irvin to a first team deal. We don't expect Irvin to be up with the first team game in and game out, although we'd certainly take it if he's ready for it. But maybe you need some midfield help there for Austin FC too. So maybe Noah James could take that path if Austin decided to scoop him up.
Very cool.
Last one here, Jack Jasinski, 6'2", 195. 4-year Princeton kid playing right back, 2-time second team All Ivy League. He was All Ivy League first team this season in his senior year. Part of a Princeton backline that conceded 0 goals in Ivy League play, the first team to ever do so in the Ivy League, and of course won the Ivy League tournament. Jasinski finished with 22 career assists, 3rd most in Princeton history. He is a domestic. The thing that could throw a wrench into it here, he did play for Philly Union 2 in USL before he went to Princeton, and even went to training camp with the Union's first team in 2022 prior to arriving at Princeton for his freshman year. So we frequently see guys that came up in a different academy either sometimes forego the draft or get selected by their team that still has their homegrown rights. But Jasinski, man, like you talk about guys, I think kind of similar to a Riley Thomas here, just like seems like a guy who's had a lot of success at the collegiate level and a guy that you'd feel pretty good about putting into your organization.
0 goals in league play?
Yeah, first time in Ivy League history.
Holy cow. That is really impressive no matter where you're playing at. That's awesome to see, man. So yeah, that's a great little preview there. I'm interested to see where those guys end up.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the last few years with the trades and the higher picks, we've done our annual live stream on draft day, planning to probably just cover the draft on next week's regularly scheduled episode. But if we have a trade, or whether it's trade up, grab one of those bigger names, or trade out, get some GAM international slot, what have you, keep those notifications on because, again, it is live stream season. So anything else for you on the upcoming draft?
No, sir.
All right, man, we'll close it out here. First, a quick Academy update. MLS Next Fest. I don't think reading more into this over this week, watching the results come in from the 15s and 16s, I don't think there's a knockout bracket at Next Fest. So I think it was just the 3 group stage games, more of a showcase here, and then you come back home. So the U18s finished 2 wins and a draw, like we mentioned last week. U16s follow suit, 2 wins and a draw. They beat Minnesota 3-2, NYCFC 3-1. They did lose 2-0 to the Chicago Fire. U15s, 1 draw against Cincinnati, 2 losses against Philly and St. Louis. But overall, seems like a pretty successful MLS Next Fest, especially for the older guys. U18s and U16s, undefeated, 2 wins and a draw for each.
Congrats. That's awesome, man. Awesome to hear.
We know the Vivero Cup was held in Austin last weekend, right? That was the more local academies that came together there at the Performance Center. The U12s win the El Vivero Cup last weekend. So the youngest boys lifting the trophy there on their home turf. And then we had the El Arbolito Cup, I believe, 2nd annual here this weekend. Looked like the U13s did not come out on top, but the U14s were into the final here today. The team posting some pictures on their academy social media feeds, posting some clips or highlights rather, of some of the goals, even the goal that got the 14s to the tournament final here this weekend. So we'll keep our eyes on these boys as we get towards the Christmas break. It's been a heck of a month here for the academy.
Yes, it has been, and that's awesome to see.
So we close out episode 275, checking in on the final round of the Goal of the Year bracket. And we had, of course, all 4 1 seeds into the final 4. But now we're here, the final 2. And for the 2nd straight year, your call at the beginning of this is into the final. CJ Fodre's 120th minute winner at Minnesota in the Open Cup semifinals will square off against not what started it, but against the MLS competition. Brandon Vasquez, his 29th minute opener against Houston in the round of 16 in the Open Cup, narrowly, 52% of the vote, narrowly beats out his free kick goal against Atlanta. Both of those goals from games in May. So it is BV against CJ here in the final, E. And the way this is going, man, I think, unfortunately, E's going to be right again.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised to see those results there on the Fodre Wolf side, because that Wolf goal at SKC, man, it might be my favorite goal all year. Just from the talent standpoint and the way that he was so calm and cool with that. But obviously that CJ one coming out of the Vibes group, that was a shoo-in in my opinion. But I do think the voters got it right on this left side here. I think that Houston BV goal is more impressive than the Atlanta free kick take that BV had there. So good job to the voters. And I think it's going to be hard to topple the CJ goal. I really, I've said it for the entire time. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, like, every vote counts, man. That is just a handful, 52% of the vote, just a handful of votes getting that Vasquez Houston goal in to the final. So you can go to the northendpodcast.com right now. You can see it on the screen here on the YouTube. The final round, finally. Every year once we get to this point, it's like, Jesus Christ, we've been doing this forever. Fodre versus Vasquez, the final round, going to crown the 2025 Goal of the Year. E, anything else for you here on your birthday before we shut it down?
I was just going to say that I thought that graphic was real good there. You had little crinkles, crinkles in there and stuff, give it some layers, some depth. That's pretty neat. It looks like some of the confetti. That's cool.
Oh, there you go. So maybe a little confetti for E's birthday here as well. So we appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 275 of the North End Podcast. We are back next week recapping Austin FC's 2026 MLS Superdraft, and of course, discussing everything else that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then. Enjoy your week, everybody. We'll do the same, and we'll see you back here next Sunday for another episode. Until then, he's 28-year-old E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.